can I get signal? Yeah, and you're live on YouTube, guys. So I shall love you and leave you, and I'll watch with great interest. Have fun.
All right. Have a good one.
Hello.
Whoa, look at us all.
That's a bit weird.
Wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, that's different. So, who wants to start today?
Linda, you're way off center. The line is going right down your face.
There should be a mirror here so I could play silly tricks.
All right.
Well, do we want to start with the obvious one?
Sure, go for it.
Angel of Mons.
That's popped up every 5 seconds during the searches.
Every time. One of my favourite stories as a kid. When I was looking into it, it's one of those, the British Expeditionary Force, 1914, over in Belgium, near Mons. Right. Virtually surrounded by Germans. About to be annihilated. And the legend is that a cloud appeared, and above them a load of basically archers from Agincourt firing into the Germans. Obviously, has since been debunked. Certainly seen as the author who actually wrote it, fantasy author Arthur Machen, published it in a London newspaper under the title The Bowman.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, very legendary. Everyone, like I say, I loved it as a kid.
Well, it's a really intriguing story and exciting. You know, you got Agincourt Bowman coming out to save World War I people. That was early in the war too, 1914.
Yes. I saw several different variations. Some saying it was knights on horseback, others saying it was Welsh longbowmen, and one even said it was Joan of Arc.
Well, I, to be perfectly honest, I can't see it being Joan of Arc helping the British.
Yeah.
But she might be helping people in trouble.
Yeah, but seeing as it was the British who burned her at the stake.
True. Well, she may not have heard their accent.
I hardly think she's gonna help our forces, our troops. I did hear as well one of the rumours that when they were trying to debunk it was that it was fighter planes, biplanes flying over and throwing darts out. That was one of the stories that was going around when I was a kid. Like I said, the fact that the author of The Bowman fully admitted he'd made it up.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just a story he'd written, which is stuck and has become a legend. But apparently, about a year after the event, some of the actual officers admitted that at the time there was a cloud base that came down and interposed itself between the Germans and the... What?
All right, just very quickly, if someone can bring up YouTube, because we've got a few people watching you on YouTube, and I can't. I've got too much to do to keep up. Huh? Oh, you have. Right, you got Murray, and you got Colin there at the minute. So,
yeah,
all right, guys, have fun anyway.
Cheers.
Yeah. Have fun.
Yeah, like I say, they admitted that it was a strange cloud because he'd no reason for the cloud being there at the time, interposed itself between them and the Germans and allowed them to basically escape.
That could fit in nicely with Alien's comment there. Could it have been a cloud of mustard gas?
Well, yeah. Could well have been. Both sides were using gas.
Oh, yeah. That is true.
That's quite cool. I never thought of that.
Yeah, there was all sorts of nasties being thrown around.
Hey, guys. Right. Do we want to have you two got other World War stories? Because mine are a lot more modern. Warfare.
Yeah, I have plenty of World War stuff.
I've got quite a few. In fact, I worked at March Air Force Base, which was later turned to March Air Reserve Base out in Southern California, Moreno Valley, California. And I worked there for 23 years. And that was built in 1918. And 17, it started. In 1918, they opened it up. It was an Air Force base. And everything was fine and dandy. Bob Hope used to do a lot of his shows there for the troops. He did a lot of that kind of stuff. And they had a lot of stuff on the property, like one building, which was look up the number. Yeah, 452 AMDS building, 2300, which was not far from the building I worked at, just partway down the base a little bit. And it used to be a tuberculosis ward for children. And then once it was converted into a military building, then there were all sorts of haunted stories there. So this lady that I know of, I never met her, I don't think, but I met some people on the team that she worked with. These couple of coworkers, they were paranormal. Wow. Okay. But she was standing there, and there was a voice about 2 feet behind her that called her name, Michelle, like that. And of course, she's the last one in the building. She's closing the place up. She'd just gone for a bathroom break, gonna leave, lock everything up, turn off all the lights. And somebody behind her says, Michelle. So she turns around and there's nobody there. But they've gone and done investigations. They've caught lots of EVPs. They've caught a lot of video. They've caught a lot of interesting stuff right there in that place. So I don't know. I think it's a really neat little story. Having it been a tuberculosis ward beforehand, it was great. The building I worked in was built long after, anything else. It was an empty lot on the base over by the fence, by the park that used to be there. And because we showed up, they fenced in part of the park and things like that. So we'd have a security barrier for our building. But the building was kind of a square with additions off the side. So it looked like a big turtle. It was a square with a courtyard and then arms that went out to the sides up front. And you kind of had another big section out behind. So it was kind of cool. But that square had automatic lights that would, if somebody came out of the ops floor or came out of an office in a hallway, the lights would come on in sections as you went around. It sent you and turned the lights on. Security guards there in the front, always, almost every night would see the lights pop on someplace and they didn't see anybody walking. Next section would come on like somebody was walking to the kitchen or somebody was walking to whatever section they were going to. But the lights would pop on and some nights they go the opposite direction. Sometimes they go this way, sometimes they go that way. It was really cool. I've seen it myself several times. But that was really neat. And many of us thought that building was haunted. You could feel things around it, but that was the most obvious thing that happened, and people talk about it all the time. Then my last one for this section is in the basement of the 4th Air Force Headquarters. And I don't know, I guess Carl's watching, isn't he? Because I've got an image here as soon as I find it. Oh no, where is it? I have to find it. I know I saved it.
That's really cool, Aileen.
Yeah.
Or should I say Eileen? Sorry, I'm mispronouncing everybody's name. It's Eileen.
Yeah, it's one I've heard as well, that one. About the base.
Cool.
I don't know what's going on with my camera.
Yeah. Well, on the TV screen on YouTube, you're covered with the comments anyway. You're totally covered with the comments.
Probably the best thing.
Well, I have one World War II story, which isn't personal experience, but it was my friend's grandma. I can't remember if she was grandma or great-grandma. She was a psychic working in Glasgow. And a lady went to her. Her son was missing in action. And the lady, well, we'll give her right name. Helen picked up the globe and went, "Your son's there," and pointed to a particular spot on the globe. Now, of course, the mother didn't know anything about where her son was deployed or anything. It's during the war. Nobody knows anything apart from the guys that are there. So after a few weeks, the mother makes the decision to go to the War Office and say, "We know my son's missing in action. A psychic I went to has shown me that he's here." And they took note of the coordinates that she'd pointed at. Sorry, I'm just looking at my screen on YouTube, and I'm pixelized to hell for some reason. And it doesn't matter. So they took note of the coordinates that she had pointed to. And eventually, when things quietened down and they had the numbers of people to go and check, they went to search this particular part of the ocean, and they found the ship that her son was on at the bottom of the ocean. All hands were still on it. Helen was arrested within 2 days.
Of course.
Yeah. Because they're like, "Oh, she's definitely a spy. She has to be a spy, blah, 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 blah." Through the interviews with her, she told them where she got her information, i.e. the ones that I call them upstairs. And it never actually went to court, but she was kept in jail for the duration of the war. And she had a very important visitor that used to come and see her every week. His name was Winston. She was Helen Duncan. She was Helen Duncan, and Winston Churchill used to visit her every week while she was in jail to get advice on what to do next. And of course, we all know who won. And as soon as Armistice Day was done, she was released. But the bit that tells you, the bit that tells you how important they thought she was, as soon as Winston Churchill heard the story, he had her moved from the cell, and it was one of the old 1800s prisons, and she was put into what used to be the warden's flat that's attached to the jail, so it was a bit more comfortable for her. And of course, more comfortable for him when he went to visit her. Yes, she's the one that was the last one to be held under the Witchcraft Act. Yeah. Because they said they couldn't do her under the Fraudulent Mediums Act because she wasn't lying. The ship was there and everybody was still in it. So, yeah, it was my friend's either grandma or great-grandma. I forget which. And I can't even ask him because he's passed on since as well. So, yeah, that's the closest one I've got for
a while ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking it's more likely great-grandma because he's a little bit younger. He would have been a little bit younger than me.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, she did.
I'm just going to log out and log back in.
Okay.
I looked and I saw that picture right here on my desktop. I looked at it 3 times today to make sure I had it. And all of a
And it
sudden,
ran away.
Oh, yeah. But it was really cool. I mean, the picture I've got shows 2 people, looks like children, maybe teenagers, up against a wall, and it's a infrared type picture.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty good one, but I'm just going crazy here. And now I can't find the page that it was on. They say that there are also in the basement of the headquarters building down there where we got the same pictures. There are the pictures I can't find. They say that there are I'm downloading the high-res picture of it right now. They say that there are torture implements down there. And they say that they're shackles that you could you'd hang from the ceiling from. Of course, I don't believe that because they look more like pipe hangers. Let me see. Let me see if I can get these to. If I can get them here. Maybe there they are. I just think that they're the pipe hangers that stick. They come down from the ceiling, and you just run your pipe through it and hold it there, and it's won't bend from vibration. Anybody able to put that picture I put up there up?
I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah, I think Carl's got it.
There we go. Cheers, Carl.
You see what I mean? There's holes in the wall right behind it.
Yeah,
they're not manacles at all.
No, but the story goes that those are manacles, and people have argued about it for a long time. But it's absolutely obvious. You get a smaller one here on the left,
small hole,
right inside, small hole, bigger, smaller, etc. So, but that's one of the things that caused the rumors. I always thought that was kind of interesting. But the pictures that I'm trying to find, and I can't even find the webpage I was on earlier for the other one. That was really kind of cool. But there's all sorts of really interesting things. In fact, 2 years ago, my son and my friend Zach, we were doing a France-wide tour. We went up north to Saint-Michel. We went across in a bunch of cities. We went into Belgium, down into Luxembourg, and then Zach got on the train to go up to Amsterdam, and Elliot and I came back down here to Carcassonne. So it was really a fun trip, and we got to see lots of castles, lots of cathedrals, and we hit Utah Beach, and we hit Omaha Beach, and the American Cemetery, and a whole bunch of that military stuff up there that's all over the place. And both Zach and I are former military. Zach's a Marine and I'm a former Navy guy. So it was a really interesting trip. And over on the other side, more toward Belgium, on the eastern side of Paris, there were several things. We went and visited some trench warfare battlefields.
Yeah.
And those were really creepy. I mean, they really were. You're walking around. I myself would prefer to have every single military person crossed over and where they need to be. That's just me. I'd love to see that everywhere and have no military ghosts anywhere.
You've just reminded me of another personal story.
Oh, good. But we're walking around up there, and you could almost feel people standing around you, and you could almost feel people walking next to you, things like that. And it was just very surreal. The whole every battlefield that we hit, every monument that we hit, it just seemed like there was the museums full of all that stuff. The museum out by Omaha Beach, that's just filled with tons and tons of stuff that people used and, could have been using before they died. It's just amazing the the stuff that they got going on. And I hope nobody ever has to go through trench warfare again.
Yeah.
That's absolutely horrible.
Well, it's hardly surprising when you consider the horrors that were inflicted on them.
Yeah. And we ran in World War I and World War II battle sites all the way through.
I've heard Dunkirk is very similar.
Yeah, we wanted to go there, but we didn't have a whole lot of time left.
Yeah.
Before Zach wanted to go to Amsterdam and someplace else. He wanted someplace, I don't remember where it was, but he wanted to go to 2 places and then catch his flight back home. So we only had a certain amount of time.
Yeah. The Dunkirk stories I've heard are very, very similar. In that there's people stood on the edge looking out onto the beach and that, see lines and lines of soldiers waiting for boats, whole platoons rushing towards the water, aircraft coming over the top. They aren't there, because they're ex-World War II planes. And 2, obviously, it's reenaction.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, I can imagine a lot of the places the lads came ashore as well.
Yeah.
Like Omaha and places like that, Gold, Juneau, have all got the have all got their stories.
Well, the one that you just reminded me of, the two of you just now, some of you might be aware I'm not that far away from Culloden, which I know is a lot earlier than the World Wars. But on the thought of soldiers still being stuck on the battlefield, we were there, my friend and, well, me and my other half were there. And as per usual, when I'm at Culloden, there are random people following me around that don't have a pulse. Happens every time. Yes, exactly, Eileen. Sorry, it's because I have a friend called Aileen who keeps correcting me when I say Eileen. So now I'm having to correct back my name. Sorry, Eileen. So, yeah, every time I'm anywhere like Culloden, I have randoms with no pulse following me around. And some of them think I'm a threat. Some of them are like, here, if you're here, does that mean the fight's over? And things like that. And the last time I was at Culloden with Col was, it was a day not unlike today. It wasn't absolutely roasting, but it was warm. And it's the only time I've been to Culloden, and it wasn't hoofing it down with rain. So we had a wee saunter around the battlefield, and I became aware of a few that were following me. And I put on, I've got one of them, you know, like the background sound box, not a spirit box, but a background sound thing.
Right.
And it's basically battle sounds. So you've got folk shouting and screaming. You can hear metal hitting metal. And so it could be any kind of war, anytime, really. And I put that on to try and draw them a bit closer, so I'm not stood in the middle of the battlefield talking at this volume to people that people can't see. Bring them closer so I can talk quietly. Yes, Eileen, yeah. And there are certain spots where I can't walk without bursting into tears. Absolutely. So we found a little bench, and I sat down. I've still got this playing. And on the other app that I had running, which is like a spirit box, there was a bloke come through. Put that off. So I stopped the background sounds. Is that better? Aye. Now, this app was created by a Spanish person, and all the words that are in it are Spanish. And I'm like, okay, it's better now that I've put that off. Do you want me to give a message to somebody? Do you want me to pass on your story? Yes, it's one of Javier's, yeah. Do you want me to pass on your story? Anything like that? And it's like, out of here. And I'm like, what? You just want out of here? Aye. You want to go back to your family and the ones that you care about? Aye. And by this time, I can't remember which one it was, Carl. By this time, I'm already practically in tears, and Carl's sitting there going, like, I don't know what to do, which is understandable. So me and this bloke had a bit of a conversation backwards and forwards, the spirit box. And there were others coming in about as well. And there's stuff moving on my desk. And I don't know why, because the cat's out. But that's what the clicking is. It's stuff moving. Maybe somebody
there's lights keep appearing in your background on the wall that look like the reflections, like someone's skying a mirror about.
I've got a prism hanging in the window and the wind is rotating it, so there'll be equal gaps.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be what that is.
That's possibly what it is, yeah.
But it's a noise. The noise sounds like it's right in front of me, and I can't see anything moving, but I can hear it moving. And then I'm like, nah, the cat's definitely still out, because you'd hear the jingle bell if it was her. But anyway, so yeah, we spent a good hour and a half sitting on that bench, and by the end of the conversations, I think I allowed 15 to 20 soldiers to go back home where they should be. They didn't have to. She's heard me talking about it. I hear the jingle bell approaching the windy. There we go. Yeah, 15 to 20 soldiers were released back to go back home after just sitting on the bench for an hour and a half. So it's sad that you have to do it, but it's sad that a lot of them don't even know that the fighting's over. Whether it's from 50, 80 years ago or 200, 300, 400 years ago.
Yeah.
It is very sad that a lot of them are still wandering the battlefield, not knowing what to do because they don't know what's going on.
Well, there was a lot of live soldiers who didn't realise that the war was over.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the Japanese soldiers. There was I think it was 1958 was the last Japanese soldier came out of the jungle. Yeah. He wouldn't believe that the war was open. He thought it was over. He thought it was a trick to get him out so they could shoot him.
It just shows you how much these people are kind of brainwashed into their jobs.
Well, yeah. But unfortunately, it's a job that needs doing.
Mm-hmm.
And without them, the world would be a lot worse place.
Mm-hmm.
You only got to look what's going on in the world today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can fully understand why they wouldn't know they had actually passed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cameo appearance.
Yes. Got to get the dog in. You too as well, Carl, but yeah.
Carl, I just put up a picture there for just for. That's just trench. That's soldiers in the trenches at Somme, Battle of Somme.
Ah, yeah.
And that looks like a nice dry day.
I was just thinking that.
I was going to say, there's no mud in the bottom. There's no sides collapsing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see the mud all the way up to their kneecaps, though.
Yeah. Man. Hope all of them made it home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a bit of a myth, though, that they were there for years.
Right. Well,
Because
they weren't. They were there for there were a couple of battles that lasted a couple of years,
yeah,
that
but
were in that
the
area.
actual troops were
Oh, no.
themselves were swapped
Right.
around. They had time out. They didn't spend all the time in the actual trenches. It reminds me of one story, and I've been trying to find it, and I don't know whether it is a story or it is a true story, if you know what I mean. And it is set in the First World War. The platoon went out over the top, got badly beaten about. A few of them tried to get back to their own lines and were lost. And they met a soldier from another unit. They were all crouched in, and he said, "Follow me, I'll show you how to get out of here." They followed him along the trenches, through various fields and across. They got back to their own lines and everything, reported in, and their officer was asking, "How did you get back?" And one of the lads turned around and said it was, "Oh, where's he gone?" It was a sapper from such and such a company. And he says, "What do you mean, sapper from such and such a company?" He says, "It can't have been." He says, "It was." And the other lads backed this lad up. "Yeah, it was such and such." The officer took him round the corner and said, "That's what's left of that company." There were 4 bodies laid there. The rest of them were out on the no man's land, totally mashed up. And the lad turned around and said, "That's the lad who helped us." Pointing to one of the bodies, he said, "He can't have been. He's been here for the last 4 hours."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it.
Very much along the line. The first story I had the idea to use for tonight was the one from the Camouflage song. Excuse me. But that one, of course, is just an amalgamation of various stories that they'd heard from the time. But that one you've just said is the closest I've heard to the actual story from that song. So
yeah. Well, like I say, I first heard that. I don't even know if I was in my teens. Like I say, I've always been into the paranormal, but I've always been into the stories about the war and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I say, I've been trying to find it online leading up to this. But that one's always, like the Bowman, that one's always stuck in my mind.
Yeah,
so
I only give up.
I don't know whether it's apocryphal or what.
I only ever gave up on the camouflage thing because there was like he says in certain interviews that it's an amalgamation of like 20, 30 different stories he's heard over the years from different battles, different conflicts during different times. So, but I dug a few others up that are from different time periods.
Cool.
These are all from an American military website. And this one is from somebody called Kenneth, who was in the army at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Lived in the senior quarters on post, which was about 1 mile from Geronimo's grave and a few others. As I was leaving for work one morning, one of my neighbours from across the street approached me and wanted to know in a very aggressive manner, why do we have soldiers marching through the neighbourhood at night time? I assured her that no unit was marching through the housing area. She pulled out her phone and showed me a video that made me forget to breathe for a few seconds. She had a recording of soldiers in 2 columns marching towards the road that led to the cemetery. Then I realised that the uniforms were unlike anything I had ever seen outside of a museum. I requested that she send me the video, but she told me her husband deleted it and told her never to speak of it again. Her husband later came across to my house and requested that I forget about the whole thing, because he was a first lieutenant trying to get a position on command staff and didn't want the extra attention. Now, I've heard similar stories at pretty much every military base I've ever met somebody from.
Right.
But I thought that was good that she had the video. That is unusual.
If you're bucking for a promotion, you don't want anybody calling you crazy. So.
Yep. So
What's the usual thing? The video goes missing.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got one from Ypres in Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
I think 1915. But basically, December 1950. There's been all sorts of battles. At the point of time of this story, they had 3 more battles to go. It's pretty bad. 200,000 people have already died. It's pretty much horrible. And see, where did it go? The good part of this here. So in December was generally remembered as the Germans' first use of poison gas against the British, although the French had had an earlier whiff of it in April of that year. On 19 December, ahead of the raiding parties in the northeast of Ypres, gas was discharged along the front. Further gas attacks were made on 20 December, turning into high explosive shelling, and that they continued into the evening of 21 December. It may have been during those attacks or a sniper bullet or a shell blast or a fragment that ended this soldier's life. He sat in his dugout in dim globe candle stub, melancholy watch in his godforsaken hole. And he's sitting there knowing he's basically going to die, right? So this dead officer came in, walked in, pointed to a spot on the floor of the dugout, and then disappeared. So this soldier who's like all melancholy and everything, had the hole dug and the spot indicated about 3 feet down. Spades broke through to a narrow tunnel beneath them. It was packed with fused explosives, and the Germans had undermined them. The timers still had 13 hours on the clock. So that was enough time for the British to come in, defuse the danger, and save their lives. But the ghost came in and pointed to the spot. Mm-hmm. It's like, that is so awesome. You know? Just love it.
I saw that one too. That was a cool one.
Yeah. What about the aircraft that landed on its own, B-17? You heard that one?
No,
very long time ago, I think, but
you'll have to tell the story, and I'll let you know if I know it or not.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it. It was one of those.
I've only got one active brain cell up here, so it can only hold so much information. I have to kick stuff out the paper.
To bounce off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 1944. Anti-aircraft crew station in Belgium spotted something unusual. Large plane was heading towards them. Its silhouette was unmistakable. It was an American B-17 Flying Fortress. The sight was immediately strange. The landing gear were down. The aircraft was descending fast, but there were no scheduled landings, leading the RAF unit to conclude that this must be an emergency. They were right, but the reason behind the landing was something they could never have anticipated. As the plane touched down, it appeared largely intact, although the landing itself was anything but smooth. It bounced and swayed, and at one point came very, very close to clipping a wing before grinding to a halt in the open field. From the start, the men on the ground sensed something was off. They waited for the crew to emerge and explain the unusual landing, but after several tense minutes, no one exited the plane. So, growing restless, they all approached it, engines still growling loudly. When they finally opened the hatch, they were met with an eerie, deafening silence. Plane was empty, yet signs of recent human presence were everywhere. Half-eaten candy bars, navigator's code book open with the day's operational colours still on board. Most perplexing of all was the neatly packed parachutes, untouched and ready for use. Enough for an entire crew, and it seemed as if the men had vanished into thin air, leaving the aircraft to land itself. It sparked rumours of ghost stories and supernatural explanations. However, the real story, while no less extraordinary, was far more grounded in reality. B-17 had suffered a critical malfunction, likely due to enemy fire, which left it barely able to stay in the air. Knowing the plane wouldn't make it back, the crew jettisoned everything they could to lighten the load before bailing out. And incredibly, just after the crew's departure, the engines appeared to stabilise just enough to keep the aircraft airborne. It continued its descent towards Brussels, flying on its own. Without all its engines functioning properly, however, it wouldn't stay aloft for long, and it actually landed.
Yeah. I didn't realise the bit about the parachutes, though.
No, it's again, it was all the parachutes and everything was still in there. I've seen a few actual documentaries about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was all sorts of people trying to debunk it, saying it was like a programmed flight. We can't even get
You can't get them right nowadays, never mind
can't
back
get them
then.
right now. So how the hell they did it during the war, I've no idea. And I don't believe for a second that it just happened to have just enough fuel to get it to fly and actually fly over an airfield and land in the airfield.
Yeah.
There was I've never heard anything about the crew.
Mm-hmm.
Because the aircraft itself would have been known. They'd know what aircraft it was from the codes on it and everything. They'd have known who was in it. But I've never heard whether any of the crew ever turned up. Everything I've ever seen on it and read on it doesn't mention that.
Yeah, like they've vanished.
Like they'd vanished into thin air.
Or been beamed up by Scotty.
Possibly.
Right, I've got one that's partly World War II. This is from Fort Devens, wherever that is. I'm guessing it's Americanese somewhere. I'm really bad at geography. During World War II, Fort Devens had German and Italian POWs housed on various parts of the base, including the pre-war 3-story brick building that was known as Hale Hall. One version of the story says that a wounded Italian POW jumped or fell from a top floor window at Hale Hall and froze to death in a snowdrift at the foot of the building. A second version says a German POW hung himself in the upper part of the building. By the 1960s, the building was in use as a training facility for the Army Security Agency. And as it housed top security military intelligence material, it had MPs inside on 24/7 duty. George was reportedly seen various times by military police, mostly at night on the upper floors. One night, a new military police officer was on duty and making his rounds on the upper floor. He spotted an individual in a secure area, ordered the intruder to halt. When the intruder continued walking, the military police officer fired his .45. Although the officer had a clear line of fire, the intruder continued to walk right through the wall. That was put forward by Kevin, who was in the army.
Fort Devens is in Massachusetts, in New England.
Ah. Thank you.
Uh-huh. I just thought of another good one here. Let me look it up so I get the details. But
I'm leaving my one till later because it's quite a long story.
Well, going back to what Eileen was talking about airfields, quite a few for airfields.
Yeah.
The RAF Binbrook in Lincolnshire. Soldiers stationed there in the years following the war claimed to see the ghost of a young pilot wandering the tarmac. He wore full flight suit, his face obscured by his helmet, and whenever he's been approached, he would vanish. One particular eerie encounter, a janitor was working alone when he heard heavy boots on the airstrip. Stepping outside, he saw a figure standing in the fog. The man raised his arm in what looked like a salute before fading into nothing. It is believed this could be the spirit of a pilot who crash-landed on the same runway, bidding his final farewell to his comrades who made it home.
I do agree with what the others are saying in chat about Hiroshima as well.
Yes.
Because that was so sudden. I reckon the majority of them don't even know it happened. Which is really, really sad.
Yes. Well, you've got the shadows as well.
Mm-hmm.
From the actual atomic blast, which are eerie enough in themselves.
Yeah.
Which isn't, yeah. I can well imagine there would be quite a few spirits wandering around wondering what the hell just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Something that always struck me as odd, do spirit understand time in the way that we do?
You know, I've often asked that same question because you'll be in a building with ghosts that are from much earlier, like I'll just say 1700s. And then there's ghosts from 1900s in there. Do they see each other? I mean, if we can see them, why can't they see each other?
It's not war related, but I've got a story about that.
Go ahead. We got time.
One of the buildings I work in it was basically a Roman Catholic bishop's house. And when the Covenanters Reformation happened up here and Catholicism became illegal, of course, there was no need for this, and the house was emptied. All the woodwork and metalwork was ripped out, and it was just left to rack and ruin. Well, that would have been round about, 1689 was when everything was turfed out of it, because the bishops had pretended to come away from Catholicism, but really hadn't. They were cheating. And the gypsies and homeless people moved into the building. And I was in there doing my cleaning one morning, and there's a big hole in the wall in one of the rooms. It's not that big. It's about 2.5 foot wide and 1.5 feet tall. And for some reason, I had the idea somebody was looking at me out of that hole. And I'm like, well, if they're in there, they have to be a kid. So I'm fishing mentally. And I made contact with this kid who was hiding in the hole in the wall. And he's from 1700s. Like, what are you doing hiding in the wall? And he says, well, when the bishop sees me, he beats me. There hadn't been a bishop there since 1689, and this kid is from the 1700s. So apparently the ghost of the bishop is still beating up the little kids that are hanging around his building. That little kid is my friend Toby, who helps me when I have to move on young spirits and children's spirits. So he came home with me now, and he's a regular visitor.
That's awesome.
I know I sound a bit nuts when I say that, but it's true.
I had that 7-year-old kid living at the house with us in California. Stayed in my son's room. So, and a lot of people have seen him. So
I was doing when I used to work on one of the psychic websites, we were doing the video room thing, and I had the Ouija board as backdrop. And somebody had asked me to move on the ghost of a child that was in their house. Where was he? He was in Buffalo, New York, and I'm sitting in my living room in Scotland trying to move this little kid on. So I asked Toby to come and help and see if he could go and make contact with the little girl. And I'm basically looking at a blank bit of wall, having a conversation with Toby about trying to help this little girl move on. And the chat in the room's going nuts. And I'm like, what's going on here? And they're all like, there's a kid's face in your Ouija board. There's a kid's face. And 5 people sent me a screenshot. And Toby's face is actually in the middle of the Ouija board. And I thought that was quite cool.
That is cool. That is cool.
Seriously off topic, but...
Stuff like that's always off topic, darn it. So the one that I wanted to bring up, and I know Carl's going to jump in and say it's been debunked, because Carl does that a lot. But this one is the Philadelphia experiment.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So, he just messaged the group. Let's see. Okay, it's something technical. But yeah, the Philadelphia experiment, I always thought was very interesting. It took place supposedly in October of 1943. There was, I'll just briefly go to the story that I heard. And I've seen the movie and I've read the little books and stuff in the past. But I brought it up here on the web just to keep my mind from straying into boys' faces in a Ouija board, because that's really cool. So they were doing an experiment trying to make the Eldritch basically invisible. They wanted to make it a stealth ship where nobody, radar can't see it, nothing can see it, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, when they turned it on in December of 1943, supposedly there was an eerie green light that surrounded the ship. The ship disappeared, reappeared in Norfolk, Virginia, which is a number of 100 miles south of where it was from Philadelphia, a couple of 100 miles south, and then reappeared back in Philadelphia. But some of the sailors that were on board were halfway between bulkheads, stuck between the decks, between one deck and the next, part of their body sticking out here, part of the body below, things like that. So it was a very not good thing. So that's how the story goes. Now, there have been a number of people who have said that this is all debunked. It never happened, things like that. I wasn't there, so I have no idea. But the story itself is quite interesting. And the theory behind what they were trying to do, who knows? You know, I mean, they've got stealth ships now that radars can't really see very well. But that's basically angles and padding, you know, things like that they use. But that's really kind of interesting. But they're trying to wrap the ship with wire, and they put an electric field around it to have the radar beams basically go the other way, be deflected so they won't return. So what do you think about that?
I'd heard lots of stories about the folk being merged into it and stuff like that, but I still can't decide. That's one that's still going to be up in the air for me for a long time as to whether it was how much is true and how much isn't.
Yeah, the thing with that is, again, a lot of it be still classified as top secret, even now.
Well, yeah, we had a bunch of people
no
buried
way
halfway
that,
through balls and decks.
yeah, there's no way, there's no way on God's earth the American government's going to give the secrets away and say, yeah, this is what's
tell you
happened.
about aliens. They'll tell you about the
Yeah,
aliens.
well, they tell you what they want to tell you about aliens.
They tell you they tell you 10% of the story and 90% of a lie.
Yes.
Yeah.
To sprinkle a little bit of truth in. This falter is allegedly of an actual mechanic, aircraft mechanic, who died a couple of days before this fault was taken or something.
You know, what is he doing in the picture, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And the fact that he's kind of not quite so well defined, which shows that he was kind of passing by at the time, because you're still in the days of having to use a long exposure.
Yeah.
These cameras.
He wanted to be on the fault with his friends. What gets me about this, though, if you look at the actual insert, you can see the guy behind him, and as you say, there's a obvious he's not fully there. But if you look to the right of his face, there's another face.
Oh, another one, yeah.
A lot smaller.
That's a long time. And if you look to the other side, in the dark side of the photo,
there's another face.
There is another face there with the fringe coming down. Yeah.
How much of that is pareidolia? I don't think that the first one is.
I don't think the first one is.
The first one is definitely not pareidolia.
Yeah.
But the others may be. Only because of the placement of the black and the white and stuff. I mean, you know, we're always looking for faces. But it definitely looks like there's two other faces in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And people have debunked it, saying it's double exposure. Some people have come forward and said it's not actually the fault of the guy who was killed. It looks nothing like him. But how they would know? These are people from. This is what always gets me with people who are debunking things like this. Oh yeah, it's obviously not such and such. Well, did you know the guy? Yeah, but you don't believe it, so you debunked it.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I don't know. It's just interesting stuff. Very interesting. This one here, I remember reading about this one.
Oh yes,
this one's fascinating. Yeah, and the guys that fell off the ship, and there they are. It's their ghosts or whatever.
But the one looking through the bars does look like Hitler.
Yeah, a little bit. These were two guys that fell off the ship. Let me see if I can remember the story. I'll look it up real quick.
Was it not something like at the end of the conflict, on the way home, sort of thing?
I don't remember. Just a second. I'm doing a Google Lens on the picture. Oh, come on. It's not that difficult. It's only wanting to do it in 17 different languages.
Of course.
Apart from the one you want, yeah.
Okay. James Courtney and Michael Meehan were killed by gas fumes while cleaning a cargo tank aboard USS Wartime. Freak accident caught en route between the Panama Canal and New York City. They were buried at sea and the ship sailed on. Days later, crew members reported seeing unmistakable faces on the water surface, the faces of James Courtney and Michael Meehan. The captain took several photographs, and the one you see above contains their ghostly faces. So that's what that one is.
Well, I've got one here from 1988. It's not a photo one. This one has been sent in from somebody called Mike, who was in the army. In 1988, I was a volunteer at Fort Frederick State Park. Where we did living history reenactments of the French and Indian War. During a nighttime training exercise, for fun, we played a war game. The idea was to do tactical movements in the fields and woods around the only original stone fort from this period in the US. During the night's activities, several of us witnessed figures in colonial uniforms, carrying 18th century flintlocks across an open field, heading away from the fort and going towards the Potomac River. No one could identify who those figures were. We discussed possible explanations for weeks after, and nothing seemed to explain their presence. So the only logical explanation was we witnessed ghostly apparitions. Which would make sense if you're on a location that has seen conflict at that time, and all of a sudden you're seeing these uniforms coming across. You know, it stands to reason that somebody's been left behind and they wanted to make the story known.
Yeah.
But again, is that stone tape or is it? Because a lot of these, there's no actual. A lot of the stories, there's no interaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just bodies of troops moving through an area.
Mm-hmm. And I got an extremely vague one from the 1700s that was sent in by somebody called Phil, who's in the Marine Corps, or was. He may have demobbed by now. During the 1700s, a stagecoach traveling from Yorktown to Williamsburg, I'm presuming it's Virginia, it says VA, I'm presuming Virginia.
Yeah.
Was attacked by Native Americans in the middle of the night. It drove across the Fellgates Crossing while on fire. Now, it makes the same route in the afterlife and scares the crap out of any Marines on patrol at the gate.
Interesting.
He doesn't say whether it's an annual thing, is it a monthly thing, is it every week? It's literally just that little few lines. So
leaves it wide open to research, I guess.
Absolutely. But then, as we all know with research, one answer leads to 3 more questions.
Yes.
Or worse.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
I don't know whether Carl can put the one I put in the thing up, like the helicopter pilot. That's it. This is photo of hang on, if I can get it to come up. Mrs. Sayer and some friends were visiting Fleet Air Arm Station at Yelverton, Somerset. Mrs. Sayer's friends took this photo with her sitting in the seat of a retired helicopter that was used during the Falklands War and allegedly shows a pilot sat in the seat next to her.
That's cool. He's got an awfully white shirt for a pilot. He must
have that was my thoughts on it. It does look like there's someone sat next to her, but if you look, the white actually continues onto the body of the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I think that is pareidolia.
It's a good one, though.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had one. Again, this is way too modern for the war stuff. But I was recently at an aviation museum, as some of you know. And I was in 1960s, 1970s mail plane, and the back half is passengers, the front half is the mail. And I was looking at the mail thing, and there's markings on the wall for this high for newspapers will weigh X amount of kilos and so on and so forth. And I'm looking at that, and I heard somebody clear their throat. And I looked, and there's nobody there, because it came from the passenger part of the plane. I looked, and there's nobody there. And I wandered down the plane. I was doing a video at the time, and I'm like, okay, so this totally feels like I am not alone in this. And you can hear people fidget. You know, when people fidget, you get the noise of the clothing and stuff. I could hear people fidgeting and stuff, and I fully expected that to be on the video because it was loud. But none of that noise is on the video. So I'm like, okay. So, but lots of old planes in museums have, and not just planes, tanks, jeeps, all sorts of stuff. You'll feel that there's somebody sitting in the pilot seat, the driver's seat, or whatever, staring at you, and there's nothing to see.
Yeah,
so
that happened at March Air Base at the March Air Museum, right there on Van Buren, but right off the base. But I remember Sherry, who used to be on my team at one point, she said she was investigating there because she worked there, volunteered weekends and things like that at the museum. And she said she turned around and caught a picture, or a friend of hers caught a picture, I don't remember which, of a guy sitting in the pilot seat of C-135. I don't know what the aircraft was, but it was there, and got a picture of the guy sitting there in the seat. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. But, that was very interesting. But yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Here's one where a guy took his family through France to visit Normandy and World War II sites and things like that. His daughter was 7 years old at the time, and he says that she had at one point never been exposed to history about World War II, didn't know what the other side's uniforms looked like. When they returned home, he found little things happening. So over the past year, my daughter has often spoken of things or men that she saw looking at her, pointing guns at her and following her while we were in the bunkers around the Normandy area. She often described them as crouching down and hiding behind corners, holding guns and looking like they were very mad. So he started asking her questions. Were you scared? Yes, but I knew they weren't trying to hurt me, so I didn't think anything of it. But there were lots of them everywhere I looked. They were moving around like army men do, kind of crawling but bent over. And we would walk out of the bunker and we'd see one in the grass or behind the tree. And then I was in the car. I could see them looking from me behind the fence in a field. Sometimes a lot of them, sometimes only one or two. So, and then she went on to describe uniforms, camouflage, everything like that of the various soldiers that were there. It's kind of an interesting little story.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was able to describe all the uniforms and everything, wasn't she? And the type of weapons.
Right.
Something that a kid of her age shouldn't really have been able to do.
You know what? We ought to do a show one time on Nazis and the occult.
Yes.
And all the stuff that the Nazis were trying to find and get, sort of death or spirit of destiny, all the different things that they were looking for. We ought to talk about that one of these nights. And then all of the, where's all the artwork that hasn't been found yet?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Amber Room. The real one hasn't been found.
No.
Yeah.
So I wonder where a lot of that stuff is. I wonder if I go through the mountains, I can find it. It's Carl.
Popping in for a minute, guys. CJ, because it's about war and things like that, and CJ is obsessed with it. He's watching this live stream as an excuse not to go to bed. So tell him to bugger off.
CJ, bedtime.
Yeah. Nighty night.
Not cool in the morning. He's got all that to do.
Yeah, we can't have you falling asleep at the school. So bedtime.
No, I don't know.
I
I perfected the art falling asleep with my eyes open.
Well,
I've done it
It's been a
still.
long day.
I did try TikTok. I'm just only popping by quickly. I did try TikTok for us, but my processors are just not good enough. I need a more powerful laptop to do that, unfortunately, unless because I know Ian and Linda haven't got TikTok. I know Joe has and I have, but you two haven't. You're watching it in the... Oh, right. All three of the kids are now watching it in the front room.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, kids.
Yeah, boys.
But we've had, at the moment, at one point, we went up to 9 people watching it on here, and we've had 10 people pop in on YouTube and watch it as well. So that's the highest we've done so far, guys. What?
Excellent.
Nice.
Go and watch it. Go watch it in bed or something. So I'll leave you to it because I'm absolutely loving this, guys.
Bye-bye. I'm not going to bed. Bye-bye. I'm not going to bed yet.
Sorry.
Awesome.
Well, my last story that I've got is a very, very long one, so I'm going to wait until you run out.
Well, I've got a really short one.
So
this happened in the summer of 1991, long after the war. But in Colmar, France, a young woman experienced something in the summer of 1991. Her family had just moved into a new house, and she found a hole in the wall of the attic. Through the hole, she could see another room, but as far as she could tell, it had no door. She felt something strange coming from the hole, and she didn't investigate. She's not like one of us. Dive through the hole as fast as you can. Go ahead and investigate. Run toward it quick. So later she went back with a flashlight and she saw something. There was a young man sitting on the floor, his knees against his chest. His arms were crossed on his knees, and he was kind of like hugging himself like that. He turned his head toward the girl and smiled. She bolted out of the room and went to the store. We bolted out of the room and went to the storage room. Heart was pounding. I was out of breath. I first thought it was a real person, but he had no color. He was like a 3D dark shadow. We never heard any footsteps. My friend refused to admit that we saw a ghost, and we never talked about it. My grandmother learned later that our house was a clandestine printing office during World War II. The owners printed slogans against the Germans, but I think that there was something else in the house, and I believe the secret room was used to hide people. I don't know. It's kind of neat. But just seeing somebody in a room huddled up with their knees and their arms against the thing, looks at you like that, and you don't hear any footsteps when he runs. That would be cool.
Yeah. I would again be trying to get through the wall to see it. It's like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just in case it is a real person.
And if it's not, you still want to see if you can help. Come on.
No, yeah, exactly. That brings me over to a question we've asked before. Do you feel any ethical qualms about passing spirit over?
No. I never have. If they want to go.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
If they want to go, I have no problem with it. If they don't want to go, stay here. Mm-hmm. Perfectly fine.
The reason I ask is several places that I've been to where spirit is the main attraction, and they don't want them passing over for obvious reasons.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's kind of irritating, though, to me. It's if the spirit wants to move on, let the spirit move on or help it move on.
It's equivalent to slavery otherwise.
It is.
Exactly.
I
thought I would ask the question because in my mind, it's if the spirit wants to go, move them on.
Yep. 100%.
One of the buildings I work at, every so often it gets like super active for no apparent reason. And I'll go round again and go, right, do you want to stay or do you want to go?
Yeah.
And I'll make a point of having that conversation with every empty room in the building when it gets active. And usually there is one or two that want to go because it's a fully occupied building, shall we say.
Yeah.
So, and I think over the last 20 odd years, I've maybe had 6 or 7 that wanted to move on. But there's a lot of them that are like, yeah, definitely. And then when it comes to that point, they change their mind.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too scared.
Yeah.
So,
Get that a lot.
yeah, you have to have that conversation with them, or at least try to have that conversation, because some of them just don't want to go. They're too scared. And sometimes they do come round to the idea later on and realize that it's not the big, horrible, scary thing they've been taught.
Right.
And, some of them change their mind.
There's some that are held in place by somebody stronger.
Mm-hmm.
You've got that going on. And when that happens, you've kind of got to go, okay, let's figure out how we can get you out of here. You okay with that? And it's always a yes, get me out of here. So you got to figure out how to get whoever's holding them there busy somewhere else.
Yeah. Trust Carl to bring it down.
Yeah.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. What about some of the ships that are haunted?
I was gonna tell the story about the ship I was on.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I want to.
Ooh.
Just because, it's sailors on my ship and things like that.
Yeah.
It took place 11 years.
You don't mention names.
What's that?
As long as you don't mention names, I'm sure.
I guess so. The ship, I'll go ahead. I mean, it's in the papers. It's public. But in 1975, in November 1975, they were doing a refueling at sea, and my ship was next to the aircraft carrier, and they're going along, do. And at the end, they always do an emergency breakaway, which is just you go the opposite directions, basically. One goes to the right, one goes to the left. Well, I don't know, and I've read different things about what it says, but somehow they collided, and part of the aircraft carrier hit the mast of my old ship, my first ship, hit that, and it caused sparks. And because it was just refueling, still fuel around on the decks, hadn't been washed off yet, started a fire. And throughout the night, we had, but burned almost down to the water line, the ship did. So the whole ship was sitting there fighting with hoses and water and everything they could to put this fire out. And it was pretty bad. Let me find a picture real quick. Images. Yeah, here's one. Let me save it. And then I'll put it up in the thingy. If Carl, you'd be kind enough to put it up. Oh, come on. Image file. But, of course, it's not here. Move this stuff out of the way. Of course, it's not here. Oh, I see what happened. It's freaked out a little bit.
Yeah, technology is great when it works.
Yeah, it is. Right. It's just not a good file type. I need to find another. Here it is. Here's a better picture, and it is actually a JPEG. So save, StreamYard, bring it up, image file. There it is. But this is after the fire. Carl, if you'd put that up, please.
Nope.
There's Colonel back. There you go. But that was the fire
Holy.
next morning. And 7 people died on board the ship, the ship here, and 1 person died on the aircraft carrier. And my office, well, I had one up by the radars because I used to work radar up high. When the ship was rebuilt, turned into the flagship for the 6th Fleet in the Mediterranean, and I was on board her for 3 years. That was the best time of all. But there were times when you'd be going from the mess decks down one deck to the reefer deck where they stored the food and refrigerators and stuff like that. My office, I had an office back in there for some other alternate duty that I was doing. So I'd sit there, but when I'd walk through that room, a lot of times you could feel that there were people in that room there. So a couple of the 7 were still there and things like that. And it always bothered me that they were there. You know, move on, folks, do your thing. But, you know, I couldn't hear them. All I could do was feel them. And, you know, you guys want to cross over? You want to get out of here? And, you know, and that, I never get a feeling of yes. I never get a feeling of let's do this thing. It was always, okay, but they're there. And now, I think 93, the ship was turned into a Target X. They sunk her, and she's on the bottom of the ocean east of Virginia Beach. So 100 miles off Virginia Beach.
That sounds more like a residual.
Yeah, it may have been a residual because I never got anything, but you felt it there every time it went.
Oh yeah.
And one of my old shipmates, when I was talking about it on, I don't know what it was, but one of our group pages, you know, for the ship and for where we were stationed in Italy and things like that. He said, "Did you ever feel anything on board?" Yeah. And I said, "Down on the reefer deck." He goes, "Okay. Yep, that's where I saw it." So that's where I felt it too. So it was like, okay, good. But it was just crazy. But yeah, that's my old ship. But you've got a story to tell, Linda.
Yes, I had to take copious notes on this one to make sure I got it square. This is a lot more modern. This is from Afghanistan from June 2009. I don't have any images because I don't know how to put them on here, so I literally just took lots and lots of notes. So this is within Helmand province, Afghanistan. Observation post rock, because it's just a big rock in the middle of nowhere. 8 Marines have been sent out to replace the British soldiers. The Marines are going to be doing a 60-day run there. Day 1, they arrive, they comment that the Brits all look absolutely fried, ready to go. They've adopted a dog called Ugly Betty, or they've called it Ugly Betty. I think it must have been the previous Americans that were there because it seems to alternate Brits then Americans during its time.
Yeah.
And they have a dog. And then one of the guys, when they're getting in the truck to go, one of the Brits stops and turns around and says to them, he's like, "If you pick something up, put it back where you found it." And they're all like, "Eh? What? That don't make no sense to me." So there was the first night, day 1. They're in the machine gun post at the top. One of the guys is. There's only 8 of them there. And the radio starts crackling and gurgling and going ahead. And then it fades out. Then it comes back. So he checks in. Gulf main, everything okay? Yeah, all good. Nothing to report. Okay. So he turns up the volume. And the crackling's coming in and coming out and fading out. So he changes the batteries, figuring the batteries are dying. Rest of the shift goes off. Nothing. No oddities. Day 3, they realised the trenches that had been dug there were very, very shallow, like not even mid-thigh depth. So they decide they're going to dig in deeper for safety reasons, obviously. You know, you're in the middle of the desert. The minute your head's visible, somebody's going to shoot at you. So they're digging and digging away. One of them finds a piece of metal with Russian lettering on it. He's like, well, that's a bit odd. Then later on, another one sticks his shovel into the wall of the trench, and a hole opens up around the shovel. And they're looking in, and they commented that they felt more like archaeologists now all of a sudden, because they're finding bits of broken ceramics, and they're pulling out these broken ceramics and stuff, and all of a sudden they've got a femur in their hands. So one's winding the rest of them up, going, hey, make a wish, we got a wishbone. And it's like, it's not, it's somebody's femur. And the others are getting a little bit superstitious, so they're just put it back. Now one of them is now starting to think, okay, this is what the British were on about when they said, if you find something, put it back. And they're all getting quite creeped out and superstitious, so they put everything back. Tried digging into another bit. More bones. Dig into another bit. More bones. Everywhere they turned, more bones. So they realised that this trench had been sliced into the top of a graveyard of some description. Day 13. Another one of them is up at the observation post overnight. The radio starts crackling and gurgling again. And he's a lot more level-headed than the others. And he's like, yeah, you know, it could be the air quality and stuff that's messing up with stuff. And then all of a sudden he feels like he's being watched. So he's fully armed and he's hugging his gun and he's looking around everywhere. At which point he hears an almighty scream, a guy screaming the place down. Everybody that's not on watch is woken by the scream. They all go piling up to the observation post, thinking it's him that's screaming. Well, it's nae. They check the perimeter. They can't find anything. They're expecting maybe somebody's got stuck in the razor wire, whatever. Search all the way around the perimeter. They check with their night vision goggles. They even check with the thermal vision goggles. There's absolutely nothing. But Ugly Betty, the dog, is barking her head off at fresh air, which is your first inkling. By the time you get to day 14, the following day, early morning, literally just before sunrise at first light, two of them check the entire area outside the perimeter. There's no prints, there's no disturbances, there's absolutely no sign that anything with a pulse was there. Later that night, another one of them is in the observation post. The radio starts again. He gets a cold breeze coming across him, but he notes that there isn't a breeze that night. In Afghanistan, there's hardly ever a cold breeze. Then he feels somebody breathing on his face and hears a whisper in Russian. He's kind of freaked out, whips his head round. There's nobody there, of course. And then he starts hearing crunching above him. And he thinks some of the lads are playing a trick on him and they've gone up and they're walking over his head. So he goes up to look and he sneaks round the other bit to make them jump and there's nobody there. So he goes back into the observation post And he's hearing the voices again. It's no longer whispers. It's like this volume. And there's nobody there. The radio's going nuts again. He's checking the horizon. He's checking every bit of ground he can see with his night vision goggles. There's nobody and nothing there. Gets the thermal goggles. There's nothing there again. When he takes the goggles down, he sees an Afghan man stood about 400 meters away from him, who appears to be staring him down. But the Afghan dude doesn't have night vision goggles, so he can't be staring him down. He's in a hole, mostly underground. So he looks again, and the Afghan dude's gone. And he's checking again. He's checking with the thermals again. There's nothing. Goes back to the night vision. And he sees this guy with a rounded helmet on, and his hands are balled up in a fist. And he's like right in front of him. So he's like getting ready to fire, and he puts the goggles down to make sure it's not one of his own guys. And there's nobody there. So he's checking again. He's back to the thermals. There's nothing on the thermals. He's back to the night vision. There's nothing on the night vision. What the hell is going on here? And this is one of the level-headed guys. And he's like, oh, lack of sleep, tiredness, heat, whatever. And then he gets a chill again when he goes back inside. And the radio comes on in a full Russian conversation, which obviously he doesn't understand. So he feels a wee bit relieved that there isn't actually anybody there. He takes it all with a grain of salt. The young lad who had the guy appear literally at the end of his gun is starting to feel very, very lonely, withdrawn, because he knows nobody else can see what he saw. So he can't speak to anybody about it. They're all winding him up and taking the piss. So he requests a transfer. He was transferred out. A few days later at 1:30 a.m., Mr. Level-Headed Man is on duty again. The dog starts going crazy again. Checks with the night vision goggles. There's an Afghan man in the distance. Is he a scout for the Taliban? He's staring at me, just like he stared at the other lad. Switch to thermals. There's nothing there. Switch back to the night vision goggles. He's 100 meters closer. In 2 seconds? Impossible. He's teleporting. Back to the thermals. There's nothing there. The dog is going absolutely nuts in his direction. And then he gets this double tap on his shoulder, which is what their sergeant always does to announce his presence. He turns around, all right, Sarge. There's nobody there. The dog is looking at him and going nuts, like somebody is behind him. He's literally spinning on the spot with his weapon raised. There's nobody and nothing there. At which point he realizes the younger lad, Zolig, that's left, was actually telling the truth. There is weird stuff going on up here. Day 39. Another dude's on duty. He hears steps in the loose gravel in the observation post. Nothing there. The steps come right up behind him to within a couple of feet. And he spins on the spot because he's expecting the double tap on the shoulder from the boss. There's nobody there. At this point, the dog comes to the entrance to the observation post. She's growling and baring her teeth. There's nothing in the room with him. He knows that. He can see that. So he comes outside thinking maybe the dog's overreacting. He checks the perimeter with his night vision goggles. Nothing there. Checks with the thermals. Nothing there. Figures, right, just have to stop all this arty-farty stuff. Get on with the job. Goes back into the observation post. And there's the crunchy gravel footsteps again. Coming right up behind him. And then he felt a breath across his ear and his cheek. He went cold. Spun on the spot. He's looking round, using his goggles as well, both the night vision and the thermals. Can't see anything. Now, this is the level-headed dude, so he's now convinced that his eyes are malfunctioning because every other sense of his body is saying there's somebody there. So his eyes have to be lying. And then he realizes, yeah, okay, maybe it is a ghost. Day 40. One of the other lads is on duty again. Radio starts playing up again. It goes cold. On the radio, he hears a whisper in Russian. Then the radio dies. He hears the whisper again, but the radio is dead, so the whisper is beside him. Spinning on the spot. Nobody there. When he first hears it, it's like that. The second time he hears it, but by the third time he hears it, it's right here in his ear. And he can't figure out what it's saying, of course, because it's speaking Russian. He literally feels somebody's lips touch his ear as it's shouting down his ear in Russian. He realizes he's only got 5 minutes left of his shift. So he comes out of the observation post and he's sitting on top in full view of any snipers that might have been around. This is Mr. Level-Headed. Day 41, they're all talking over breakfast. Every one of them is realizing that there's something going on here. There's one of them that hasn't experienced anything yet, and that's Smith. So he's taking the piss out of everybody. Day 59, the last night that they had to be there. Both sets of radio batteries were dead in 10 minutes. So he gets permission from the boss, Sarge, the one that does the double tap, to put the very last battery into the radios. So they do, they put the last batteries in. 5 minutes later, Sarge, that one's dead as well now. Okay. We have no way of calling for help if the proverbial hits the fan. What do we do now? Well, there's nothing else we can do, but at least it's our last night and we already know there's transport coming for us tomorrow. So, the one on duty for the last night starts hearing the voices at conversation level in the room around him. Looks round, nobody there. The radio crackles into life. And then there's the whisper again. And then he hears the conversation coming from the other side of the room. So he's literally spinning one side to the other. As he's doing that, he starts hearing machine gun fire. Very, very close. Like his ears are ringing. It's painfully close. This goes on for a full 6 minutes. Everybody who had been asleep has now come up the hill into the observation post because they can hear this machine gun fire. The entire place is lit up like there is machine gun fire going on when it stops for a few seconds. And they're all sitting in the observation post back to back. And there's nothing there. And it suddenly falls silent. And they start looking around the ground. There are no spent casings or whatever. There's no sign of anything being fired in their vicinity. And then they hear the RPGs incoming. So they all think, right, that's it, we're dead. But it never actually impacts. They hear the noise of it impacting, but nothing happens. They check absolutely everywhere, moving 2 feet at a time. They've just got it in their head. We have to do the job. We haven't seen anybody. We have to check every trench, every square inch of the perimeter. And they're just moving a couple of feet at a time. The last one who's left in the observation post hears the machine gun fire right at his ears again, and he feels deathly cold. He's actually so cold, he's now wondering if he's been hit by these machine gun bullets. And he's checking himself to see if he's bleeding, which of course he's not. But while he's checking himself, it goes silent again. Day 60, the day they get to go home, or get out of there anyway. Their transport was supposed to be coming at 11 o'clock. They were all packed and ready to go within 5 minutes of getting out of their bed. Excuse me. They had a British driver. Came to collect them. So, did you see any ghosts then? That place is supposed to be haunted AF. So, they asked him, what's the story with that post? Well, originally, the Mujahideen had that post. Then the Russians took it from them. The Russians executed all the Mujahideen and basically left the bodies to rot where they fell. Then the Taliban took over one night and ritualistically beheaded every one of the Russians and left them where they fell. Later on, the Marines took it from the Taliban. The Marines buried the Taliban in and around the observation post. They all thought when they got out of there, that was the end of it. But one of the Marines has commented it feels like he's in one of the Final Destination movies. 8 of them went there. 1 transferred out before it got too much. Then Smith was killed by a rogue bullet on a secure base. The chances of that incident actually happening are like being struck by lightning. Diggs died in an IED blast. Well, it is Afghanistan. A lot of people pass that way. Green, the sergeant with the double tap, he got horrendous facial issues from a IED device. Parker was killed on patrol. There are only 3 of those 8 left alive, one of them being the guy who transferred out at the beginning. And that is the end of my story.
Wow.
Yes.
Crazy.
I can well believe it, though.
Is there a worse thing to do, though, when you're absolutely terrified? You have a weapon in your hand. They're lucky one of them didn't completely flip and kill all of them.
Yep.
It shows some serious self-control that none of them actually did that.
Yes. It's, like you said, they're in an extremely tense situation, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Every instinct is, when are we going to get attacked?
Yeah.
Every nerve ending is on a high peak.
I was going to say afraid.
Well, yeah, on high alert, expecting things. You've got an animal there that's picking up on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had mates who were out there and won't tell their stories.
Yeah.
I've also read some of the things that were done when the Russians were there.
Mm-hmm.
The brutality that was inflicted on them.
Yeah.
I mean, the female Taliban.
Yeah, I didn't know you could do that until now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something I've learned for next week.
Yeah, female Taliban and everything used to snatch Russian soldiers and just out of sight of the actual Russian lines, basically mutilate them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the troops, their own troops, could hear the screams and everything. Let's face it, I mean, Afghanistan's been a war zone since
centuries.
Yeah.
I was going to say since the Tower of Babel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If not before.
Yes. But I believe the Taliban also used to use Russian heads to play polo with.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do next week?
I won't be surprised.
Come on, public. Well, we've got a few of you in here. What are we doing next week?
Yes.
Well, for what one's me, one's the kids, because they're trying to watch this before they're trying to use it as an excuse not to go to bed.
Yeah. Well, I don't want any nightmares about people breaking into their rooms and with machine gun fire.
Well, I can't do next week. I will be in Ireland.
Oh, blimey, you'll go Ireland this time.
To be sure.
Not work this time. This is.
Oh, right. Yeah, definitely.
You're going over to get a spice bag, aren't you?
I'm going over to the Open Golf.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
My daughter won a ticket for it.
Cool.
So, yeah, come on. Let's have some ideas, people. One, while we're waiting for people to come up with ideas, one that you possibly know more of.
Yeah. Oh, CJ had gone to bed to watch it.
Yeah.
At least he went to bed.
I don't know how far this is away from you, Joe.
Mm-hmm. What one's that?
The Hors Dieu Sir Glane. Basically, the village that the SS.
Oh, yeah, that's emptied out. They killed everybody.
Yeah. Can you
I think I've got that marked here on my map,
Carl?
I'll look into it.
Yeah. Can you put it on the? I put a photo in there, Carl. Can you?
Let's have a. Hold up. I think my mouse is as cold as I am at the moment. I'm waiting for the stars to come out. So, because where she lives in the middle. Oh wow!
Yeah.
When we going?
Nice.
Yeah.
When we going?
It is not.
Hello, Bella.
A pleasant.
No.
Basically, the Waffen SS. One of the.
Come on then.
One of their officers had been killed or something.
Yeah.
And
Every week without fail, isn't it?
that's right.
Sit there, stay still.
SS Panzer Division
Mm.
were tasked with, well, basically they were sent in to sort out as they called them, terrorists, as we know them, partisans.
Yeah.
The town itself, when the major was killed, they went in and basically murdered every single individual. The women were rounded up, I think, sent into a church. Women and children sent into a church and barricaded in. The men were all sent into a...
Second you said that, I remembered it, yeah.
Yeah, were sent into the barn. And then they set the place on fire.
Yeah. It's 400 kilometers for me, about 4 hours, 4.5 hours driving.
Yeah.
I do want to go up there, though. It's marked on my map.
There's one from
I would
Randy.
love to go. Haunted theatres and cinemas. Ooh, yeah, there's enough for them.
There we go.
Yeah, I was about to say there's loads of them.
No,
yeah, Orator is
Eileen's one, multi-layer and dimensional existences. We did kind of touch on that with time slips. Check that one out, Eileen. There's some really interesting stuff. It weren't fair because my computer screwed up, was playing up then, and Ian beat me to the Kersey story. I'm still sulking about that.
It's buy cheap, buy twice, Carl.
The thing is, the laptop that I'm using cost me nearly 600 quid.
Yeah.
It's the other one that was the cheap one. I did try it.
Flog the kids' PlayStations and get one at $1,000.
I think the mum would love to get rid of their Xboxes.
You know,
flying out the window at you.
On a theater in cinema might be a good one to do.
He's always had a fascination about war. Heidi's dad, due to his health, he tried to join the army when he was younger, but due to health, I can't remember what it was, but he got refused. So he had a lot of war stuff. He had decommissioned guns from the Second World War and all sorts of things. And CJ was always fascinated in the war books and things he had. And he's up in his bedroom sitting there watching us. So, CJ, get a bed.
Yeah, go sleep.
Yes, you got your high school tomorrow.
We did reincarnation already.
Yep, we've done that one. We've done reincarnation or this thing. What have we done? We've done Ian's favourite.
Yeah.
UFOs and UAPs.
The haunted theaters and cinemas might be good because that's the whole thing. West End of London with all the theaters there. There's haunted theaters right here in my town.
When I was sat in the garden the other day and I saw that whatever that was weird because I live literally under the flight path of Stansted Airport. And that was a cylinder. It looked like, do you know when you get the expensive cigars, they come in the tube?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it looked like that, and it had the sunlight reflecting on it. There was no wings and nothing. And literally, I actually even sent you the video footage of an actual airplane on exactly the same flight path, and it looked nothing like it. I'm not saying aliens or any of that sort of thing, but it was definitely something weird.
Yeah.
The last time I saw something like that was back in the mid-80s, and it was a rocket that had to change from its set plan. So instead of going that way, it had to go that way instead, which meant it was visible over the north of Scotland for an hour or two until it disappeared into the atmosphere.
Well, it's plausible,
but you couldn't hear anything because it was so far up, you couldn't hear it.
Yeah, it did look higher up than the planes was, so it's possible. Because can't remember if it was earlier this year or last year. Me and CJ were in the garden doing some astrophotography. Because as you know, I like doing my astro. And where Heidi is, there's literally no lights. For the nearest light is about 3.5 miles away, other than like house lights. And late at night, it is literally you can't see your hand in front of your face. And we saw like something weird in the sky, but it turned out to be Starlink because a lot of people had reported it. But I must admit that looked really cool. That did look really cool. But tonight has been absolutely brilliant. I'm freezing me nads off at the minute, but in fairness, I couldn't have stayed indoors because the kids were actually quiet and watching it. So I've sat out here for nothing.
Well,
and
you'll
all this
know
time I've been
next time.
saying, yeah, next time they'll be shouting and swearing at the Xbox. And I've been sat out here this whole time. And I know she's watching, and Heidi hasn't brought me a single coffee yet.
Wow.
But no, it's been absolutely brilliant, guys. We've had the good news is we've had as I said the other day, I've been using vidIQ to try and get people so we can see, because you guys work your nuts off doing this. I'm just doing I'm just there as the eye candy. But through vidIQ, that's had 14 views. You've had 14 views via vidIQ, and at one point we went up to 9 views on here.
Cool.
So
it's good. We'll be famous before we know
it. On YouTube, because I've had the YouTube thing on the telly all the way through, it seems to have consistently been 7 with a few pickups to like 9 and 11 a couple of times. So that's good.
Yeah. It doesn't, for some reason, it's got up to 8 now. So somebody else is sort of finishing. So, how's Colin, by the way?
Not 3 bad. How are you, Colin?
He's in there, isn't he, somewhere?
At the other end. He is there.
I saw him there a little while ago. Oh, hold on. Didn't mean to turn off. I love that bit. That's a nice new little toy for me to play with now that I can bring people's comments up. So
yeah.
I actually, the only reason I found it out is when Eileen had said something, I was going to say something like reply back, and I thought if I click on it, it'd be like a direct message, and it wasn't. It came up on the screen, so I've got a new toy to play with. But no, Eileen, you're more than welcome.
But it's good when you can pin the viewers' comments as well, because it shows that we're paying attention to them too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I've said all along: is we need that interaction.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's just us blethering about stuff we enjoy.
Yeah.
Which you could do all night, apart from Joel looks like he could do with about 12 years sleep at the moment.
I can't. I haven't slept all. I got up about 5 this morning and haven't even taken a nap today. So.
It looks like he's got himself a new tattoo, doesn't it? It looks like it's gone. Yeah. Looks like it's gone off a new tattoo.
I'm going to get a horizontal bar across there pretty quick. Just to take you off, Carl.
X marks the spot. See you.
No, it's been brilliant, guys. So yeah, we got everyone's got a couple of suggestions. One was Haunted Theatres, I think it was.
Theatres and cinemas, yeah.
I haven't got
multi-layered dimensional existence. That's kind of
that we have kind of broached that already.
We touched on a lot of things, but this is again what we were saying about going back to stuff.
I keep telling Joe not to do that live on camera, but you don't listen.
I don't. No, I just say no, like I tell everybody else. Leave me alone. We could always do another cryptid one.
We have done quite a few that you might find interesting. I think we need to broach cryptids again. No.
Yeah, there's a lot of cryptids that we didn't talk about the first time.
There's a lot we've not done on what the wars.
Well, I was going to say, researching this the last couple of days, I've found out about a few that I'd never even heard of before.
Yeah.
In fairness,
There's a lot of naval stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's
Like I was
of,
saying in chat, there's a lot of cryptid sightings during the war as well. Especially during the Vietnam War.
Yeah, well, I would imagine there'd have been a lot during the Second World War with the German troops on methamphetamine.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
But
which one was it that had the Foo Fighters?
As I said in comments, during the war, you could go to Harrods and buy methamphetamines. You could buy heroin. You could buy cocaine. You could buy cat, all to send off to the troops.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, Sherlock Holmes, opium. You could buy opium. It was
there were opium dens. People would go and lay and smoke opium, sit there for days.
Opium was the death of laudanum because opium was cheaper for a while.
Oh yeah. But laudanum
was popular in the American West.
Yeah, laudanum again. It was a antidepressant.
Yeah. Oh, an over-the-counter one.
Yes,
and it was even used by the prostitutes to induce abortion. And things like that. And if you're beating you too hard, you just give them an extra dose to knock them out.
That sky behind me looks fantastic.
It does. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. It's bloody chilly out here, though.
We still got some daylight, a little bit. As you can see behind me. Just a little bit.
I've got trees in front of me, which off to one side I can see daylight, but I've got trees in front of me, so
yeah. So it's up to you guys. You know, I've been sitting here. Like I said, it's been absolutely fantastic. You know, the interaction with people I really appreciate it. You know, they've done and you guys, I've said to you before, this sort of stuff really helps my mental health because it gives me the adrenaline buzz, and it really does help.
Gets the endorphins flowing.
Sorry,
gets the endorphins flowing.
And it's really making me want to go hunting again.
Yeah,
I haven't been out on an investigation in. I think last one I had was the week before my heart attack, and that was May 9th last year. So about just over a year since I've had an investigation.
It's still better than me. I don't get to go investigating anymore. All I get is shouted for house clearances and stuff. For going on an investigation, my last one would have to be Derby Jail about 7 years ago.
Wow.
Which I've done loads of times. I've done Derby Jail loads of times. But saying that, I do still meet new people without a pulse almost every time.
Right. So we can look into. You can do theatres. We could retouch on cryptids. And as Linda said, I'd sat here laughing when you said, "I know we've got off topic." You can ask them too. When do we ever stay on topic?
Oh yeah,
we kind of do.
We
it all comes under the weird Wednesday umbrella, though.
Right. It's like time. It's a big ball of string, and it touches where it fits.
Yeah,
It's like I've actually started one of the tours I do so many times I can do it in my sleep. Yeah. And now when people come on it, they get little sidebars of why so many people died in childbirth in medieval history, why this happened, why that happened, why that, down to the medieval laws and things. And just because I'm getting bored with doing this one tour, so I keep adding all these little sidebars that fit into the same time period.
Yeah,
but it keeps it interesting for your customers, doesn't it? So your clientele. So
that's it.
Yeah, I don't mind what the topic is. I'm easy either way. So,
well, are we going to start doing like we suggested, pre-recording?
Yeah, if one of us can't be there, a couple of us can't be there, we should pre-record. I mean, it only takes. We're going for an hour and a half, right? So it's an hour and a half, 2 days before. I know we're at 2 hours.
Yeah, you're about 2 hours. You're about 2 hours.
There's a few Wednesdays coming up that I have bookings for, and there's one in August where I'm going to be in Edinburgh. So, and I'm not carting this thing with me.
Funny enough, because Joe put it in comments about doing that, and because I couldn't sleep the night before, I was sitting there, I was doing a bit of gaming, watching a bit of YouTube, and I've just heard a fox.
What that was?
I'd been sitting up doing a big bit of gaming and a little bit of like watching YouTube and watching films and things because I couldn't sleep. I sat there, I thought, to keep the consistency up and running. Oh no, it's not. It's CJ making stupid noises. Get to bed. But I'd actually been sitting. Oh, little son little son just shot me with his Nerf gun.
It's not a Nerf gun. It's actually number one.
Anyway,
not a Nerf gun. It's a 2.2 air rifle.
Don't worry, I'll put my foot up his ass when I get going. But no, I'd been sitting up thinking exactly the same thing as Joe had, because it keeps it consistent for everybody, and we are starting to get noticed. Today we've had 23 views. While we was live, last week it was I think about 16 in one go, and it's been creeping up each week, and this is the highest.
Yeah,
it's thanks to you guys. You've done brilliantly. I did try YouTube, and I will have to just upgrade my computer, unfortunately. So unless Linda and Ian are willing to get TikToks on their phones, but
I did join it because it made me join it to watch one of the things that you had put up. But
did it?
I can't. I don't use it.
No. I must admit, it keeps trying to push me that way, and that and Instagram. Again, he has no intention to.
Well, I've got Instagram. I've got like 3 accounts on Instagram for different things. My own personal. I've got one then for ghost hunting. I got another one for my videos and stuff that I'm gonna have whatever soon.
Well, I just don't fancy the idea of joining all these bloody groups. My brother is on Instagram, and he's following all these bloody celebs and pro golfers, and he keeps sending me stuff, and he's into all that. He loves watching all the golf videos, and this is how you do it. No, that's not how I do it. I smack it and hope for the best.
Right. Hopefully it goes in the right direction.
Yeah.
Which is probably more original, because being that it was invented by Scots, smack it and hope for the best is about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm happy to do theatres.
There's enough of them.
Yeah, well, every theatre's got a ghost. So
yeah.
And I was in the papers locally here recently doing our local cinema because they had reports. Didn't get a chance to do a full investigation. It was literally an hour walk around, but it was cool. And some people came out to say hello, and one wifey came out to shout at me and tell me to get the F off her steps. Which is interesting when you're in a cinema.
Unfortunately, places like that are just being closed down left, right, and centre nowadays.
Yeah.
There was the State Theatre in Grays in Essex. I lived there years ago when my eldest were first born. It hadn't been open for years, but I believe it's Jamie of Paranormal Torch done one there about 2 years ago, and the state of it in there now, it's just ripped up, which is such a shame. but there's like ones in Great Yarmouth that have got a
But
lot of
it's
alleged ghosts.
things like TikTok that causing the death of it, because everyone wants the 3 minutes of fame, and it's literally the youth of today haven't got that stamina to sit and watch something for that length of time.
Yeah.
Oh, look at me! I'm an influencer. I'm doing this, and yeah. I'm eating a Pop-Tart or whatever. Yeah, whoop-de bleeding do.
Actually, I was on TikTok about 2 years ago, but then it was just everything was like the Alphabet Army and like all that sort of stuff and all that. And each to their own. That's down to them and this, that, and the other. But that wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for paranormal stuff and unexplained stuff and all that. But
that is unexplained.
Well,
it's like I don't use my Instagram because I don't use my Instagram because every time I get a notification on my phone for Instagram, it's some bikini-clad 19-year-old has uploaded a video you might want to watch. No, wrong audience.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, it's the boxes that's tailored to you, and you don't. You're just getting bikini-clad. I suppose that might be okay for the guys and such like, but
no, because I like a little bit left to me imagination. I've got a good imagination.
That's it.
That Facebook is exactly the same now. It won't show me things from people that I'm connected to.
Yeah.
Suggested for you. Why the... Pardon my French.
Yeah, I'll run across...
I want to watch that.
Yeah, I'll run across... It'll pop up and it'll be a friend of mine that I haven't talked to in a year and a half, and on Facebook, and I'll realize I haven't seen any videos or anything from that person.
Yeah.
It's like, so their algorithm is trying to find other people. But, you know, it'll be like, oh, hey, how you doing? Click, click, click. I've got a friend in Northern Ireland. We were just chatting yesterday because we had an old memory together of when she drove us around and up to Giant's Causeway and stuff like that when we were there 10 years ago. So the picture showed up now. 10 years ago, this was happening. So I sent her the picture and said, 10 years already. And she's like, oh my God. So we talked for like an hour, but I haven't seen anything of hers posted in a long, long time.
Yeah, I'm exactly
see 50 million adverts for something that you're not interested in buying.
No interest in whatsoever. I go on every so often and clear all the ads. And it comes up, and then every bloody other post is an ad for something else because I cleared the ads and said I don't want. That winds me up beyond belief. And you report stuff, Carl will tell you. Carl's the same. Like you say, you get scantily clad women with a bits.
For 2 hours.
And then they'll turn around and, oh no, this doesn't go against our community standards.
Not being fact, as I've said to you.
Photo of my grandson in the bath.
Yeah.
He was covered in bubbles. You couldn't say anything. This goes against our community standards.
I said that to you before.
But that's all right because that's sponsored.
I saw videos and pictures coming up of women giving oral sex and all sorts of things. And I reported it, as you should do. Doesn't go against standards.
Yeah.
Heidi's got the tent up because of the sun. She's got a swimming pool inside the tent for the kids. I took a picture of them, and I got a week's ban because they said it was child pornography.
Yeah,
of my own kids swimming in a swimming pool, and they had a t-shirt and shorts on.
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous.
But like we've discussed before, Carl, They're sponsored. They're paying Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all right what they do. If you're prepared to pay, they'll put anything up.
Yeah.
The ones I get all the time, I get about 3 a day. Retired military man.
Joe sending
all the bots trying to friend you on all the apps.
Yeah. My mum keeps getting them. She keeps asking me to block.
It's like somebody left a feedback 10 years ago for one of my tours, and then one of these bots or whatever is like, "Hey, you're so pretty. I like you. Follow your blah 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 blah." And it's like,
again, if you report
I must admit, I was on
they uphold it.
The only reason I got TikTok back up was to try and like promote us doing this. And Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I had over 30 messages saying, "Would you like me to do your zodiac? I can read your future. I've got a message from a member of your family, but you've only got to pay a $40 donation." And I'm like, "Fuck off."
Totally free.
I charge £1. I charge $1.83 per minute on the website, and it's a lot cheaper than that if you go to the point of looking for me online. That's why I have.
I know what you charge on OnlyFans, Ian.
Say again, Cal.
$1.83. I know what you charge on OnlyFans.
I can tell you stories of some of the stuff I've seen when I was working in the video rooms doing readings. And I put myself at $9.99 a minute because I didn't.
I was going to say Joe's going red again.
It's like, oh my god!
I've had lots of conversations trying to do a reading with someone, and their shoulders get the shakes. Freaks.
Yes.
Oh, you just put me off my coffee.
It's funny. We were talking about. There was a program on yesterday, apparently, regarding some sexual deviant. It was a bloody weird sodding thing, but they were talking about it at work. I was saying when we were kids, we were playing in the park with teenagers. About 8
Message from Eileen there, guys. Eileen, if you look on Phantom Seekers, it was tonight's one was shared up there. I private messaged it, I PM'd it through to the Phantom Seekers messenger, and it was somebody, I'm not sure who, but somebody put it up. If you go onto that, then you can check it out that way. So but we've had some good ones.
Bottom of the screen too.
Yeah.
YouTube.com at Paranormal Anglia.
I know now because we hit. I need to change that because now we've hit 100. It's changed itself over to Weird Wednesdays. It done it automatically for us.
And you're still sitting there just like that doing nothing. Oh my gosh. I would have had that changed already months ago.
Oh, okay. Eileen, I forgot I'd put it on there, to be honest.
Carl, get your finger out.
On that link, go there, go through there. Yeah, it's comes in that. If you look up Paranormal Anglia now, it's my old YouTube on there now. It doesn't take you through to this one anymore. You now have, when you go onto YouTube, you have to put in Weird Wednesday Hour podcasts. So I'll make sure I change that. Somebody remind me, Messenger, because I know I'm going to forget. Oh, stars are starting. Oh, no. Yeah, stars are starting to come out now. And I've got Mars right above me, so I think I might be taking some. Look at that sky behind me; it looks fantastic. That looks lovely. Right, so it's up to you guys. I don't mind. We can do theaters. We can do cryptids again. I really don't mind. I know Ian's chomping at the bit for UFOs part 2.
Yeah. It will be a UFO.
Seeing as he's chomping at the bit for UFOs part 2, you're chomping at the bit for cryptids part 2. how's about we just do the theatres and cinemas and then see, like do the part 2s when nobody's come up with options?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what, right?
Yeah.
It's ironic. UAPs and UFOs is the open topic about everything at the moment, disclosure and all that. Yeah, it's the lowest rated video that we've got on the channel. Only, what the hell was that?
It's a ghost tapping you on the shoulder.
Yeah, well, I've got enough fucking damage on.
Who's that Afghan in the background?
Harry says UFOs would be great. Carl, are you traveling that day?
just behind the gate down there, just over the other side of the field, there's little copse of woods. And just past that, you got the A14. It's not overly busy around here because it's literally middle of nowhere, this place. Well, we came back one day. We'd been at my mum's 60th birthday party. The fog was so thick, Heidi had to drive from Ipswich to where we are, which is like about 38 miles at about 20, 30 mile an hour because it was so thick you couldn't see. And as we got out the car, we could see the trees and it looked really creepy. And just at that point, a police car or an ambulance has gone along the A14 with just the blue light flashing. And that going through fog and the trees, it looked, Landon. It looked phenomenal. But I didn't get my phone out in time, unfortunately. But I could have done what I could have easily
it would have come out blurred, just like all these Bigfoot folders.
I do like those kind of nights when the mist's that heavy and you see it creeping up and over the fences. I do like it when it's like that.
I love it when you get an inversion when you're up on the hills. And all below you just cloud. Like you said, when you see the blues and twos going.
Yeah.
It's quite spectacular.
Yeah. Well, where I am now, back there behind that fence is 21 miles of field, and over in that direction there's 14 miles of field.
Yeah,
that's literally how far out in the middle. Know where she is, and over that, slightly over that way is the nearest shop is about 4 miles away. That's literally how.
Someone in Englandshire that lives more rural than I do.
That sounds ideal to me. I'd have the feels mind.
One of the buildings I work at you've got neighbours over the hill about a mile away from you. But apart from them, there's nothing for 3 miles around you. And it's just bliss to come out of the town and go and sit up there for the day. So
that's,
Perry, hang on. Well, I've got my new toy that I found.
Perry can sit in for me when you're doing UFOs.
Oh, is that a week that you're away again, is it?
Yeah. I don't know what week it is, but I'm away.
But no, cryptids. I was looking at some cryptid stuff last night because I got up about 3:30 this morning. So how I'm still awake, I have no idea. And I was looking at some more, and I actually found some cryptids I'd never heard of, and they're British ones as well.
Yeah.
So I hadn't heard of it, but Jenny Greenteeth. Apparently that's your sort of direction, Ian.
Yeah.
I've heard of that one.
I'd heard of Black Annis, but I hadn't heard of Jenny Greenteeth.
Yeah, Jenny Greenteeth.
Perry, we have got UFO.
I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it really.
Yeah, she's it's remember right? It's the pond.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she's very much.
Lures kids. If I can remember rightly, she lures kids into the pond, around the pond area, and
we've got one like that coastally here. They call her the Grin Iron Wife or the Grin Iron Witch. I presume the grin has come from green.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
That's up
Listening-
near me, isn't it? It's some, as far as I can remember. That's up. It's the northwest.
I think so. From what I heard, what I heard about it, though, she sounds very similar to Charlie Alec from.
You vanished.
Carl is gone. They're
Yeah.
talking about Jenny Greenteeth coming from
There we go.
Liverpool and Southwest Lancashire.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you, yeah,
God, he's big.
Right,
Looks
guys.
just like my ex-mother-in-law. I got scared
Right,
there
I'll
for a
have one
second.
Right, guys, it's been absolutely. I've absolutely loved sitting here watching this. I'm going to say that it was Linda's story that made. I'll say it's Linda's story that made me shiver. But there was one I did mention it in chat. There was in I think it was Afghanistan or it was somewhere like that, the Middle East anyway. But a load of Russian troops had gone missing. They sent in some others to look for them. The watches said that they'd only been gone a few hours, and when they came out, allegedly, they'd been gone for 5 weeks.
yeah.
So
That's kind of
but then again, with Russia, you'll have like reporters that stabbed themselves 27 times in the back and shoot themselves in the back of the head 4 times, and it's suicide.
suicide.
Yeah.
So,
Same thing with in the
Well,
States.
it's like
when it comes to some
these who
certain-
fall out of windows. It
Yeah.
was natural causes.
Mhm.
yeah,
That's sudden
There was
stop
actually-
at the bottom.
I haven't looked into it, but apparently there was a news report that was going around on TikTok from America. Some woman, her body was found in 75 pieces. Her head was found in the boot. This was this week. This has happened. Her head
Right,
was
the
found in the
suicide.
boot of the car, and the police have put it down as suicide.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if you fall foul of the mafia, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The trouble is though with AI the way it is nowadays. You know, it looked like a perfectly real news report. It looked like an actual genuine news report, but it could have easily been like VOE3 or whatever it's called.
Well, look
some-
at all
you know,
them adverts. I mean, I only watch YouTube. I don't watch the TV anymore. I only watch
I haven't
YouTube.
watched TV in
All
over
the
6 years.
adverts that I've seen this week about this invest £200 and you'll be earning £1,000 a day, and
Yeah.
they've got Richard Attenborough, David Attenborough, and all these celebs doing this stuff, and it's like, what the hell? Is
Yeah.
there not
Yeah.
some kind of law against that? I mean, one of them
Yes.
they're using is the Martin's Money Tips. They're using
Yeah.
him to advertise this stuff as well. And I'm sure there's laws against that.
But it's finding
They're
who's
probably
in charge of them
Mm.
with a lot of these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I must admit, I've had a bit of fun with the AI. Look at that baby one I've done. That was cute as hell.
That was cute.
Well, you got Captain
Yeah.
Mannering.
Yeah,
Oh,
That
was
just
it Ben
went-
Elton?
that just went completely
Yeah,
balls up. That
Ben
one.
Elton.
But,
Ben Elton's actually more flattering.
yeah, that one didn't work out quite as well as I was hoping. But no, when I was researching how to do that baby one, because I just thought, try little shorts, even get a few people in, sort of thing. I watched a video clip, and right at the end of it, it goes, "Oh, and by the way, I'm not even a real person. I'm AI." And I'd been watching a 20-minute video clip, and I thought it was a real person showing you exactly how to do it. You
Yeah.
wouldn't have known the difference.
That's
You
another
know?
one of the adverts that says if you click on the link, I'll show you how to do it for free and you can make a fortune.
Yeah.
And yet when you that VEO3, right? I thought, oh, look, they're the ones that do you know them Bigfoot videos, the funny Bigfoot videos
Mm.
Yeah.
that are going around up and sharing? Some of them are hilarious, and I thought, do you know what? I wouldn't mind doing that with like an alien or with Loch Ness Monster or something like that. Silly, yeah. It's $2,500 a year to use it.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
I do quite like the Bigfoot ones.
I was going to say, you think if you
they were
used
hilarious
it and actually marketed it right, you could make a fortune.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At $2.5 grand.
you
If
could
you're getting 100 grand in, 2.5 grand's nothing, is it?
Yeah, well, that's nothing, is it? No.
But, I mean, it amazes me how much these influencers and that claim they're on, and all the sponsorship they get.
Not being funny, because
there's
a couple of people I used to watch that play zombies on like Call of Duty and that on their Xboxes and things, and I've sat there and I've literally seen them getting 3, 4, 5, 6, even $7 grand in donations.
Yeah,
there's one American young girl, and she clearly does it for one reason only. She's got big endowment, shall we say?
Big tracts
She's
of
always
land.
in really tight bikinis. Someone donated $1.5 million to her.
See, these folk definitely have more money than sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's the way things are going.
It's like going to one of those buy me drink girl bars.
Joe, get your knocks out. We'll see if we can get some sponsors. All right. Right, guys. No, it's been absolutely brilliant as always. All in though, I think we've had about 23 views tonight, so I'm really pleased with that. And you guys were phenomenal as always. If I'd known the kids were actually going to behave, I would have actually been able to join in, but it's sod's law.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Kids being kids. CJ, you better be asleep. I know you're watching it still. I know he's still watching it. I know he is, because his bedroom light's still on. Right, get to bed. Right, guys. Brilliant as always. We potentially got theatres to do next week, but we can talk about that in chat as always and decide on that. I think that's quite a good idea. I think that was it. Colin that suggested that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought it was Eileen.
Oh, wait a minute. I've got to scroll back now.
What was Eileen's suggestion?
Colin?
No, Colin.
Yeah, it was Colin that suggested that one. Eileen was either side.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm clicking on the highlight things, is it coming up on your screens as well?
Yeah. And on the TV.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. I should hold on. I've got to do this just for fun.
Put it away.
Because I know he's watching. So, where is it?
Night, CJ.
Right, guys. I'll see you when I see you. Thanks for tonight. It's been absolutely brilliant. Sorry I couldn't be in properly, but with the CJ going up to school and having to sort out his uniform and everything, it's been
no worries.
manic. Apologies.
Did all that work out good?
For being a bit.
Apologies
for being a bit slow. Sorry, Joe?
Yeah, well soon, Joe.
Okay?
Get a band-aid on that.
Get well soon, Joe.
It's healing. It's very itchy. Very itchy. It's driving me nuts.
Right.
Well, I would say oil will kill the itch, but it'll make it sting like hell.
Yeah. I'm reading
with money, so that's whiskey for you. Right, guys. Thanks for tonight. I'm freezing my knocks off, but it's been really good. Thanks for everyone that's watching, and we'll see you next week.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
CJ, bed.